Welcome, class. I'd like to introduce our guest today, who's going to talk to us about the current landscape in blockchain. I'd like to introduce Daza Greenwood, who is a research scientist at the MIT Media Lab. And Daza also owns a consultancy firm called civics.com, which is one of my favorite types of consultancy firms because it's a big Venn diagram. It helps you with the intersection of business, law, and technology, and they have a focus on blockchain. So Daza, welcome, and I see that you're wearing your favorite client's hat.
I am, yeah, indeed. Yeah, so yeah, civics.com has been a really important source of knowledge. In fact, being able to get into companies and do a deep dive into their systems to help consult around deploying new products and services has been one of the best ways to keep current and understand what's happening at the cutting edge of the market. But meanwhile, at MIT, GE is also a sponsor of the MIT Media Lab, so I figured it was safe to wear the hat.
Yes.
And so I needed something that sort of matched I had like some blue shoes going and a blue shirt, so there's many reasons, but thank you for noticing the hat. Here at the Media Lab, my focus is on law and technology. I run something called law.mit.edu, where we are focusing on developing an emerging new discipline in the law that we call computational law, using data science and algorithmic methods to model and predict and help to automate legal processes and in some cases law and regulation itself. So lately it's been a blockchain world out there.
It has, yes.
So a lot of my consulting and also research and teaching has involved, in some cases, been really exclusively about blockchain exploration and or deployment in one way or another, and innovation. And so I think probably the best thing I can convey to your class at a high level is what I'm seeing as I kind of scan the horizon out there. I'm seeing the emergence of two blockchains, in a sense, or two dimensions of blockchain, let's say. Mm-hmm. On the one hand, we have the blockchain of financial investment-oriented vehicles, and so there's a lot of froth around ICOs and around arbitrage and sort of currency-oriented stuff. So I'm in a conference room with like a complete glass wall, and people keep walking by, so I may sometimes have to wave, and just know I'm also waving at you.
You're popular. I'm waving back.
Okay, right on. This is what it looks like, by the way. So it's like here's like the hallway in the Media Lab. And that's getting a lot of press attention, that ICO stuff. On the other hand, we've got a blockchain that I'd say is about providing a technical capability or set of capabilities that can solve business needs, business use cases, business requirements, to provide sort of faster, cheaper, better products and services. These are different domains. They can be related for sure, and sometimes they're tightly related. Like I think Ethereum is a good example of one where they've got a coin that's tradable, and it's some people use for investment. But meanwhile, it also very much serves a functional purpose. Is gas to power distributed computing on their blockchain. In other cases, really, it's all about an ICO and about an investment vehicle. And in other cases, it's all about the functional capability of the blockchain to provide everything from, provenance or creating and preserving evidence of the history and the kind of life cycle, factual, state of like a document or data. Like digital timestamping is one thing it's good at, digital signatures it's good at, or to, what else? Identity. Blockchain has been showing some early success as a source of digital identity that can be publicly verifiable. using the cryptography and sort of the addresses and the key pairs that users will get in a wallet when they create an account on a blockchain, or an address rather.
And are you getting diplomas from MIT on the blockchain now?
I put that in the first category I mentioned. So that's an example where we created and preserved and then actually made discoverable and published evidence of like a document and a diploma. And we use the blockchain as a digital timestamp and also a provenance kind of capability. So that would be sort of like Factum, but we have our own open source thing that we did using very interesting standard called verifiable claims. And it basically verifies the registrar has digitally signed a certificate. I think it's certificates right now for professional education. And the idea is to make sure it's really reliable and solid. And then, ideally to deploy it to diplomas, for undergraduate and graduate degrees. But basically they sign the certificate, or, the digital file with the certificate information, identifying the student and the program and the year and so forth. And then the student has an identity as well. And they sort of sign it. And now they can go ahead and show that, they could publish it on LinkedIn, they could send it to prospective employers, or an award ceremony, and anybody on earth could verify that the registrar at MIT in fact signed that, because our public key is available right on the blockchain. So the same way you would conduct a currency exchange, that you would have a payer and a payee of cryptocurrency by using the payer's address and the payee's address to transmit and receive the funds. Similarly, you can find the address and the key pair needed to kind of encrypt and decrypt messages, and use that not for an encryption capability, but for a signature capability, digital signature. So anyone could verify that the address that is linked to the registrar of MIT was used to digitally sign this file, and that the file has not changed since it's been signed. And that's terrific. That means, you don't have to drag the registrar in the middle every time somebody wants to get a verifiable certificate. You can just you can have them sign it once and verify forever. And so these are some kind of rudimentary examples of business capabilities. Here's another one that I've been working on lately. I think I have to put it at like a relatively high level of abstraction, because you should probably check in with a client to see what they're supposed to be saying. But just at a very high level, well, actually I can say that there's actually, I know the level of abstraction because there's a number of companies doing carbon credits one way or another on blockchain. So if you think about this, here we have an example of an existing business service, which is called the carbon offset market. So there's carbon registries and other kind of programs that are accredited and recognized for legal purposes and other investment purposes as being authorized to issue a carbon credit for every ton of carbon somebody has provably demonstrated they've taken out of the atmosphere, or that they prevented from going into the atmosphere. So you put like smokestack scrubbers on your factory, and you can provably demonstrate you've reduced 60 tons of carbon, you get 60 carbon credits. If you grow a forest of trees, maybe you can prove you've got 200 tons of carbon out of the atmosphere that the trees have breathed out of it basically and replaced with clean, beautiful oxygen. Then you get those credits, you put it in a registry, people buy and sell the credits. Problem is, that's a pretty clunky old system. This stuff really was created like the 70s and the 80s, and it can take a long time to do what's called settlement and reconciliation of the transfer of ownership rights to these credits. So it's not instantaneous. That introduces some drag and some friction into the transaction, and that creates some risk and cost. And so one idea is, maybe we could use blockchain to have a single authoritative source, a single shared common ledger, a distributed, single cryptographically, publicly verifiable ledger. And basically, instead of minting a crypto coin, you can mint a kind of token that represents a carbon credit, and then exchange rights to that and transfer them on a blockchain. So that would be another example of this, call it the business blockchain, if you will, as opposed to the ICO blockchain, where it's a type of business, but as opposed to like the speculation blockchain, put it like that.
So like a true token for a utility for a pure purpose, not just for speculative investments.
Bingo. Yep. And so this is, I'd say, what I would like to convey as your students go off into the world with their new blockchain knowledge and expertise that you have so carefully crafted in their minds. They should be able to distinguish when they're sizing up a news report or talking to a prospective client or employer, or they have their own project, where do I fit in this new big landscape? And then that tells you a lot. For one thing, I just listened to a really interesting podcast today called Unchained. If you don't listen to that one, I recommend it. It's they have a lot of very interesting people at the forefront of blockchain technology, one way or another, that come and talk about their business. And the interviewer was asking this. I don't know if it was a hedge fund or some kind of major fund, how they do due diligence on their investments. And one of the things that they said on the business of blockchain side in particular was they want to understand what market they're operating in. Is it an enterprise market? Is it a consumer market? And their due diligence sounded identical to an IPO due diligence, or to like an investment round, VC like due diligence, where they want to know, do you have like an enterprise sales team? Do you know how to go through that life cycle and to sustain that? Do you have like the talent and the wherewithal to support a sustainable, valuable product where there's a kind of good value, it's ready, and there's a good fit in that market. So these are some of the kinds of things to think about on the business side. On the currency side, it's a whole different thing, and the major thing to keep an eye on to get good at is regulation and managing the risk of regulation, but also managing the benefits of it. So there's all sorts of ways you could go the extra mile, register with the SEC or commodities or otherwise, to kind of like build in the cost of regulation to immunize yourself maybe from securities fraud or other kind of liability or uncertainty that could happen. But it's a changing landscape, and it's still somewhat ambiguous which regulations do or should apply. So you have to understand that that's a moving target, and you be able to adapt to that. And that requires some maturity and some sophistication, some experience. So people that are experienced in managing the relevant regulatory environment would be important in a team like that. That was if you're going into we're going to do ICO, we're going to issue coins for purposes of basically that sort of like investment realm or environment of blockchain.
Okay, so I see in our time is up, but it looks like I have 3 takeaways. One is the podcast that we can take a look at called Unchained to get more current information. And then the awareness that there are actually 2 blockchain environments, the business and technical side, and then the financial and speculative side. And we can be aware of all the other avenues that Unchained, there it is. Excellent. I love it. Daza, thank you so much for your time and your insights. And next time we need some enlightenment, you're going to be the first one that we call. And good luck with your consultancy firm, civics.com.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure. And we'll see you next semester.
All right. Next